A major vulnerability in nearly all common password managers in your browser, a happy update to the UK Apple Backdoor saga, good news from Firefox, and more. Welcome to Surveillance Report 238, where we are dedicated to keeping you private and secure out there with the latest news from the past week. I'm Henry from Techlore, and I'm happy to be back. Thanks everyone for your patience. I had a family member that passed last week, so I'm happy to be back this week.
And I'm Nathan, and I have not had any new family members pass, so I'm still here.
That's good. Before we get into the highlight story on password managers, I wanted to touch on our sponsor very quickly, which is Ente. So Ente is what I've been describing to friends and family as essentially a zero-knowledge, end-to-end encrypted Google Photos alternative. It's where you store everything. You can do videos, albums, it has facial recognitions, geotagging, natural language search, and it's all done on device, and you actually have to opt it in to those features, even though it's done on device. It has curated memories, phone widgets, hidden folders. The really cool thing too is that it's not really an ecosystem that's designed to trap you into it, so you can create albums that non-users, your friends and family, can add their own photos into as well without needing an account. It's completely open source. You can actually self-host it yourself if you want access to it for free. And they even have cool things like duplicate image deletion and 3 backup locations in the EU, as well as a family plan. It really is the easiest recommendation I can give to someone looking for a private Google Photos alternative. And there's even a free plan for you to get started with, I think, 10 gigabytes of free storage. You can use our link below to let them know we sent you, which is ente.sh/surveillance report, and we'll have that link down there. Definitely click it, check it out, try it out for free. And we want to thank Ente for sponsoring this podcast. They're a great service. All right, and now we're going to get into the highlight story. Major password managers can leak logins in a clickjacking attack. They studied multiple password managers, sounds like plus or minus 10, but they do not study ones like KeePass as an example. I'll touch on that in a second. But these password managers have tens of millions of users, and they are actually currently vulnerable to an unpatched clickjacking flaw that allows attackers to steal credentials, which includes things like 2FA codes and credit card details. What they do is they exploit security issues when victims visit a malicious page or website vulnerable to a cross-site scripting or cache poisoning attack, where attackers overlay invisible HTML elements over the password manager interface. While users believe they are interacting with harmless clickable elements, they trigger autofill actions that leak sensitive information. So it's just a way to spoof. It's something that is hard to prevent against, and we'll touch on like the general responses to this. So the researcher tested his attack on certain versions of 1Password, Bitwarden, NPass, iCloud Passwords, LastPass, and LogMeOnce, and found that all of their browser-based variants could leak sensitive info under certain scenarios. They also did test ProtonPass, Dashlane, Keeper, NordPass, and RoboForm. It seems like the most successful attack mechanic is to run a script on this malicious or compromised website that uses opacity settings, overlays, and point event tricks to hide the autofill drop-down menu of a browser-based password manager. The attacker then overlays fake intrusive elements like a cookie banner, pop-up, or a captcha so that users' clicks fall on the hidden password manager controls, which results in completing the forms with sensitive information. 1Password actually just outright rejected the report and categorized it as out of scope and informative, arguing that clickjacking is a general web risk users should mitigate. Similarly, LastPass marked the report as informative, and Bitwarden did acknowledge the issues but downplayed the severity. And Bitwarden told Bleeping Computer that the issues have been fixed in version 2025.8.0, which is rolling out this week. It's unclear if LastPass and 1Password are planning to address the problem. LogMeOnce, this is the only real red flag, did not even respond to any communication attempts. On the other side of things, the vendors that did implement fixes are Dashlane, NordPass, ProtonPass, RoboForm, and Keeper. All users should make sure that they're running the latest available versions of the product if they want to see those fixes. And until fixes become available, the researcher recommends that users disable the autofill function in their password managers and only use copy-paste. So a bit of a controversial story, and that's because there's a lot of debate over the likelihood that this actually impacts users and whether or not we should care about it. Some password managers like ProtonPass, Dashlane, RoboForm, NordPass, and Keeper already fixed this, so if you're using those, there's really nothing to be concerned about. If you're using Bitwarden, it's going to be fixed in the next several days. And if you're using something like 1Password, I don't know, I am not in a position to disagree with the people at 1Password. Those guys know their stuff, so if they consider this informative / out of scope, it's going to be an uphill battle for me to battle them on that. With that said, some password managers already did fix it, so that does in some ways kind of push back that it is out of scope for them, because it seems like there is a way to address this problem, even if it is a bit out of scope of the password manager. So I have mixed feelings towards this, but either way, I do think the researcher might be exaggerating the risk here. I don't think that this is something that I would disable the autofill function in my password manager for, just because of the situation. Now, if you have a really high threat model, this is probably something you should have been doing in the first place. You can probably just manually copy things over. But also, think about this. A very common way to catch phishing attacks is when your autofill doesn't work in your password manager. And so it's kind of a balance here of what's more likely to happen and where you're going to find the most benefit. And for me, I'm going to keep using autofill in my browser. Not like it matters because I'm using Proton Pass, but I don't know. I'm curious for Nate's thoughts on this, because I know this one's a little bit, we're getting a lot of mixed messages from different people on it.
I agree. I think, the important thing to remember is if you're using one of these password managers that fix this, you're in the clear. This is why we do like things like Proton Pass, Bitwarden, even though the fix isn't out yet, it's rolling out. I'm with you. I'm a little frustrated that 1Password said we're not going to fix this. And I reached out to them to ask why. They haven't responded yet. And for the record, if anyone from 1Pass is watching this, I would have asked you, like, hey, can I quote this or can I summarize this for the podcast? Because my thing is, it's one of those things where if it's an easy fix, why not just do it? We criticize Signal for that because there was a flaw, I think about a year ago, maybe a little less than that, where the desktop version of Signal was storing your private key in plain text on your device. And when people reported that as a bug, Signal was basically like, well, we can't help it if your device is compromised. And it's like, yes, that's true. But apparently the fix was so simple that it's like, why wouldn't you just do it? That's kind of my question is like, how difficult is this to fix? And I have to assume it can't be that difficult if multiple password managers were able to patch this almost immediately. Bitwarden's going to have it out probably by the time you're listening to this.
One thing, we didn't put this in the show notes, but the researcher did communicate with all of these providers before they went public. So these providers had time to patch this before he released the article publicly. So it sounds like Bitwarden might have just seen what the reaction would be and then decided whether they wanted to patch it or not.
Which is not outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry, just that context.
No. Thank you. You're right. I shouldn't make it sound like, oh, it was so easy. They did it in 2 days. Like, I do forget that they usually responsibly, they will communicate with people beforehand. So yeah, I'm sure they've been working on this for a while. But the point is there is a fix, and everybody else, mostly everybody else, seems to think like this is worth the trade-off, and they went ahead and did it. So I would be curious why, just genuinely asking, like, if 1Password can make a really good argument for why they're not going to do it, then okay, great. But if it's just like, meh, out of scope, like, I don't know, to me that feels lazy. I guess the important thing here, like the important takeaways, are keep your stuff updated, because again, most of these, the password managers we recommend are already updated before you even knew this was a thing. Again, Bitwarden will be coming soon. And like you said, it's you have to ask yourself that trade-off of, because I used to copy and paste passwords, and I started using the extension only because of passkeys. I wanted to play around with those a little bit more. And it is really convenient. And like, I know my wife uses the crap out of autofill. Like, if it wasn't for that, she probably wouldn't be using a password manager. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if copy and pasting makes you feel better and it's something you're going to keep doing, then sure, go for it. But if it's one of those things where you stop using your password manager because of it, then it's probably not worth the trade-off, in my opinion.
There was one quick thing on Twitter, I believe. KeePassXC quoted the research article and I think tagged the researcher and pretty much said, hey, we'd love for you to analyze KeePassXC's extension. So they did not analyze that extension. That was not one of them. And KeePass wishes they did, which makes me think they just wanted an honest assessment, or they knew that theirs was safe. But either way, they should be able to do that assessment themselves, potentially. That's just a little addition there.
With that, we're going to jump into the data breaches this week. We'll start off with DaVita, who says a ransomware gang stole data of nearly 2.7 million people. DaVita serves over 265,000 patients across over 3,000 dialysis centers in the United States and 453 centers in 13 other countries worldwide. This breach occurred at least as early as March 24th, and they cut off access April 12th. They said, while inside the systems, the threat actors stole data from DaVita's dialysis lab database, which includes a combination of personal, such as name, address, date of birth, and social security number, health insurance related, and health information, such as condition, treatment information, and dialysis lab test results. For some individuals, the stolen information also includes tax identification numbers, and in some cases, images of personal checks.
Colt is a UK-based telecommunications company, and they have confirmed that customer data was stolen as Warlock ransomware auctions files. They began selling on the Ramp Cybercrime Forum, where they claim there is 1 million documents stolen from Colt. The documents are being sold for $200,000 and allegedly contain financial information, network architecture data, and customer information. That's pretty much all we know so far.
In a similar vein, Orange Belgium has disclosed a data breach impacting 850,000 customers. So this is a subsidiary of Orange Group, who I believe we have covered a couple weeks ago. They had a data breach. Orange Belgium provides fixed and mobile connectivity services to over 3 million customers in Belgium and Luxembourg, employing 1,500 staff, and claims to operate the largest 4G and 5G network in the country. The attacker gained access to one of their IT systems containing the following data: surname, first name, telephone number, SIM card number, PUK code, and tariff plan. It said that the threat actors didn't gain access to passwords, email addresses, or financial information. Orange Belgium is notifying all affected customers via email or SMS.
HR giant Workday has disclosed a data breach after a Salesforce attack. So Workday has over 19,000 employees and offices in North America, and their customer list comprises over 11,000 organizations across a diverse range of industries, including more than 60% of the Fortune 500 companies. The type of information they obtained was available business contact information, like names, email addresses, and phone numbers, potentially to further their social engineering scams.
The New York Business Council has disclosed a data breach affecting 47,000 people. So this is the state's largest statewide employer association, and they represent over 3,000 member organizations, including chambers of commerce, professional and trade associations, and other local and regional business orgs, as well as some of the largest corporations worldwide. This occurred in February. The attackers stole a combination of full names, social security numbers, dates of birth, state ID numbers, financial institution names, financial account and routing number information, as well as payment card numbers, payment card access pins, payment card expiration dates, taxpayer identification numbers, and electronic signature information. They added the health data exposed in the attack includes medical provider name, medical diagnosis or condition information, prescription information, medical treatment or procedure information, and health insurance information. The Business Council will provide free credit monitoring memberships to those whose social security numbers have been exposed.
Next up, highly sensitive medical cannabis patient data was exposed by an unsecured database. This is from Jeremiah Fowler, who found a publicly accessible database in mid-July that appeared to contain medical records, mental health evaluations, physician reports, and images of IDs like driver's licenses for people seeking medical cannabis cards. This was 323 gigabytes, and it stored things like social security numbers, email addresses, physical addresses, date of births, and medical data, all organized by name. Now, based on information that seemed to describe specific employees and business partners, Fowler suspected that it belonged to the Ohio-based company Ohio Medical Alliance LLC, which goes by Ohio Marijuana Card. Fowler contacted the company on July 14th when he checked the database the next day. It had been secured and was no longer publicly accessible online, but Fowler did not receive a response about his submission. If anyone from Ohio Marijuana Card is listening to this podcast, you should at least send a thank you. Ideally, a nice card in the mail for Mr. Fowler. And it's common practice to include some kind of bug bounty or, some kind of thing to say thank you, because it could have been someone with bad purposes in mind who would have cost you millions of dollars. Just something to think about.
Send him some weed.
Or send him some weed.
This last one is real quick. It's just an update with exact numbers. Alliance Life data breach affects 1.1 million customers. The article has the full recap if you have missed that story and you think you may be impacted. We will move into the companies. So this is a new zero-day startup that offers $20 million for tools that can hack any smartphone. This is a new company called Advanced Security Solutions. They launched this month and are now offering some of the highest prices, at least publicly, in the whole zero-day market. And apart from the highest bounty of $20 million, which applies to any mobile operating system, the company also offers bounties for exploits in various software, such as $15 million for the same type of 0 days for Android and iPhones, $10 million for Windows, $5 million for Chrome, $1 million for Safari and Edge browsers. It's unclear who is behind the company and its customers, and the company says on their website, "We empower government agencies, intelligence services, and law enforcement to operate with precision in the digital battlefield. We maintain continuous cooperation with over 25 governments and intelligence agencies worldwide. Our clients clients consistently return for new services reflecting the trust and strategic value we provide in high-stakes operational contexts, including counterterrorism and narcotics control. The website also says that while the company is new, it is staffed exclusively by professionals with over 20 years of operational experience in elite intelligence units and private military contractors. Advanced Security Solutions did not respond to a series of questions, including whether the company has any self-imposed ethical or legal restrictions on which governments to sell to. This was a person speaking to TechCrunch on the condition of anonymity. They said that normally these advertised prices are in the ballpark, but they said that $20 million bounty is low depending on how unscrupulous you are.
Harvard dropouts are going to launch a startup in the first ever, I'm just messing, this happens a lot, but they are launching an always-on AI smart glass that listens and records every conversation. So this is a bit of an update from a story we covered a year ago. I started reading it and I'm like, wait, this is super familiar. These two guys are the guys, if you guys have been listening for a while now, who pretty much took Meta Ray-Ban smart glasses and converted them to become facial recognition glasses that could just identify any person. They insisted they never used it on people to just locate random people, but in an interview they did acknowledge the risks, that some dude could just find some girl's home address on the train and just follow them home. For now, Halo X glasses, which I believe is what they are trying to create now, only have a display and a microphone but no camera, although the two are exploring the possibility of adding it to a future model. Users still need to have their smartphones handy to help power the glasses and get real-time info prompts and answers to questions. The glasses, which are manufactured by another company that the startup didn't name, are tethered to an accompanying app on the owner's phone, where the glasses essentially outsource the computing since they don't have enough power to do it on the device itself. Under the hood, the smart glasses use Google's Gemini and Perplexity as the chatbot engine, and Gemini is better for math and reasoning, whereas they use Perplexity to scrape the internet. The AI listens to every conversation you have and uses that knowledge to tell you what to say, kind of like IRL Cluely, which it refers to the startup that claims to help users cheat on everything from job interviews to school exams. They also called the glasses the first real step towards vibe thinking.
Okay, now we'll move on to research, and we just have one story. It says, phishing training is pretty pointless, researchers find. So this came from two researchers at Black Hat, which is a major cybersecurity conference that happens around the same time as DEF CON, I think the week before it, but don't quote me on that. It says, phishing training for employees as currently practiced is essentially useless, two researchers said at Black Hat Security Conference. In a scientific study involving thousands of test subjects, 8 months, and 4 different kinds of phishing training, the average improvement rate for failing a phishing scam was a whopping 1.7%. The two researchers wanted scientifically rigorous real-world results. They enrolled more than 19,000 employees of the UCSD health system and randomly split them into 5 groups, each member of which would see something different when they failed a phishing test randomly sent out once a month to their workplace email accounts. So they used a control group where members, if they click the phishing email, they just got a 404 error. They used a generic static website. So people in this group saw a static web page that contained general information about avoiding phishing scams. They used a generic interactive group, which was walk through an interactive question and answer exercise. And then they used a contextual static, a static web page again, but this time it shows the exact phishing lure the subject had received and pointed out the warning signs that were missed, and contextual interactive, an interactive Q&A session that walked the subject on what they missed in the specific lure they'd received. Over 8 months of testing, however, there was little difference in improvement among the 4 groups that received different kinds of training. Those groups did improve a bit over the control group's performance by the aforementioned 1.7%. However, some lessons were learned, not all expected. The first was that it helps a lot to change up the phishing lures. Most subjects saw right through a phishing email that urged the recipient to change their Outlook account passwords, resulting in a failure rate between 1 and 4%. But about 30% of users clicked on a link promising information about a change in the organization's vacation policy. Almost as many fell for one about a change in workplace dress code. Another lesson was that given enough time, almost everyone falls for a phishing email. Over the 8 months of the experiment, just over 50% failed at least once. Finally, it turns out that a lot of people completely ignore phishing training. Many of the test subjects closed the post-click page they were shown so quickly that the researchers couldn't measure their dwell time.
Moving on to politics. US Spy Chief Gabbard says UK agreed to drop the backdoor mandate for Apple. So some important context here. This was happening, several months ago now. The UK pretty much pressured Apple secretly to build a backdoor into their end-to-end encryption. And the only reason we found out about that was because Apple just removed the feature. And they pretty much made it public that they were requested to add a backdoor into it. Apple then supposedly was going through their internal court system that was private to try to fight this. And then the US actually got involved, and now Gabbard and Trump and the US administration pretty much put enough pressure to arrive at some kind of hidden deal we don't know about with the British government so that this no longer is a thing. So they have agreed to drop the backdoor mandate for Apple.
T-Mobile claimed that selling location data without consent is legal. Judges disagree. So the Federal Communications Commission last year fined T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon, saying the carriers illegally shared access to customers' location information without consent and did not take reasonable measures to protect that sensitive data against unauthorized disclosure. The fines relate to sharing of real-time location data that was revealed in 2018, but it took years for the FCC to finalize the penalties. The three carriers appealed the rulings in three different courts, and the first major decision was handed down on Friday. A three-judge panel at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit ruled unanimously against T-Mobile and its subsidiary Sprint. The court said, because the carrier's arguments lack merit, we deny the petition for review. The FCC fines include $81.1 million for T-Mobile and $12.2 million for Sprint.
Google is going to pay $30 million to settle a lawsuit over children's YouTube data. This was a lawsuit that alleged that Google collected data from children watching YouTube videos. While this kind of data collection has become common, it remains illegal to collect data from children under the age of 13, per the longstanding COPPA legislation. Though Google will settle the case, the company denies the allegations. It's possible that up to 45 million people in the US could be eligible to receive small payments from this class action, which encompasses anyone in the US who watched YouTube while under the age of 13 between July 1st, 2013 and April 1st, 2020.
So this one I think was sent to us by a reader. It says Norwegian Telenor shared sensitive personal data with the military junta in Myanmar. According to the NRK's review of internal and junta documents, Telenor provided Myanmar's military with subscriber traffic data and executed blocking orders long after the 2021 coup, affecting roughly 1,300 customers. The records indicate nearly 500 users faced arrest and risk that authorities intended to use the data to secure 3 to 7 year prison sentences. Or sorry, just as sentences. I'm assuming they mean prison. Disclosures reportedly included names, addresses, call logs, SMS information, and last known locations. Telenor, which says it never refused junta demands due to threats to staff safety, confirms the action and notes it exited Myanmar on March 5th, 2022. For privacy and security communities, the episode underscores the sensitivity of telecom metadata, the limits of corporate resistance under authoritarian legal compulsion, and the heightened risks posed by retention practices to activists, public figures, and ordinary users in high-risk situations.
Russia has ordered a state-backed Max messenger app, a WhatsApp rival, to be pre-installed on phones and tablets. It's called all caps Max, M-A-X. People are saying that critics say this could be used to track users, and it must be pre-installed on all mobile phones and tablets from next month. The Russian government said in a statement that Max, which will be integrated with government services, would be on a list of mandatory pre-installed apps on all gadgets. They did say that the accusations that it's used for spying are false, and that it has fewer permissions to access user data than rivals WhatsApp and Telegram. It will also be mandatory that from September 1st, Russia's domestic app store, Rustore, which is pre-installed on all Android devices, will be pre-installed on Apple devices. A Russian-language TV app called Lime HD TV, which allows people to watch state TV channels for free, will be pre-installed on all smart TVs sold in Russia from January 1st. The push to promote homegrown apps comes from Russia, said this month it had started restricting some calls on WhatsApp, accusing the foreign-owned platforms of failing to share information with law enforcement in fraud and terrorism cases. WhatsApp, which in July had a reach of 97.3 million in Russia, responded by accusing Moscow of trying to block Russians from accessing secure communications, while Telegram, which had a reach of 90.8 million users, said it actively combats the harmful use of its platform. The third most popular messenger app in July was VK Messenger at 17.9 million people, an offering from the same state-controlled tech company, which also develops Max. So Max said this week that 18 million users had downloaded the app, parts of which are still in a testing phase. Russia's Interior Ministry said on Wednesday that Max was safer than foreign rivals, but that it had arrested a suspect in the first fraud case using the new messenger.
We'll move on to some good news. The Michigan Supreme Court has reined in digital device phishing expeditions. So this comes from the EFF, and they say when police have a warrant to search a phone, should they be able to see everything on the phone, from family photos to communications with your doctor to everywhere you've been since you first started using the phone? In other words, data that is in no way connected to the crime they're investigating. The Michigan Supreme Court just ruled no. In People v. Carson, the court held that to satisfy the Fourth Amendment, warrants authorizing searches of cell phones and other digital devices must contain express limitations on the data the police can review, restricting searches to data that they can establish is clearly connected to the crime. EFF says we explained to the court that the realities of modern cell phones call for a strict application of rules governing the scope of warrants. Without clear limits, warrants would become a de facto license to look at everything on the device, a great universe of information that amounts to the sum of an individual's private life. The Carson case shows just how broad many cell phone search warrants can be. Defendant Michael Carson was suspected of stealing money from a neighbor's safe. The warrant to search his phone allowed the police to access, quote, any and all data, including text messages, text picture messages, pictures and videos, address book, any data on the SIM card if applicable, and all records or documents which were created, modified, or stored in electronic or magnetic form, and any data, image, or information. EFF says there were no temporal or subject matter limitations. Consequently, investigators obtained over 1,000 pages of information from Mr. Carson's phone, the vast majority of which did not have anything to do with the crime under investigation. The Michigan Supreme Court held that this extremely broad search warrant was, quote, constitutionally intolerable, unquote, and violated the particular requirement of the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment requires that warrants, quote, particularly describe the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized, unquote. This is intended to limit authorization to search the specific areas and things for which there's probable cause to search and to prevent police from conducting wide-range exploratory searches.
Very quick petition against Bill C2. This is a signal boost from a reader. A petition against Canada's upcoming Bill C2, which expands Canadian surveillance, is up. So they have both the petition and a write-up from the EFF in the show notes for those who missed that episode. So definitely consider that if you're a Canadian citizen.
Just to clarify, this is actually from a Canadian member of parliament, the petition. The EFF write-up is just in case anybody's here that's like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, but I'm interested. They have a great write-up about everything that's wrong with C2 that we covered a few episodes ago.
I'm going to go ahead and start the FOSS, free and open source section here. Firefox just got better for Chinese, Japanese, and Korean speakers on Android. They now support these languages, both on desktop and Android, which means millions more can browse and translate the web in their language without sending their content to the cloud. This was apparently commonly requested, so I'm sure this is making a lot of those people happy. That is just a quick update there. And then they also have something called CRL Lite in Firefox. And they say fast, private, and secure, pick 3. Firefox 142 will begin production usage of their brand new certificate revocation system known as CR Lite, which makes browsing faster, more private, and more secure. It eliminates the need for online revocation checks, which both slow down page loads and leak the sites you're visiting to third parties on the network. Other browsers have deployed similar approaches, but these systems have only been able to store a small fraction of all revoked certificates, necessitating imperfect guesswork as to which ones are most important. CR Lite is efficient enough to store all certificate revocations locally, and it requires only 300 kilobytes per day of continuous updates to stay current.
I'll just go ahead and take the last couple stories because they're pretty quick. We don't have any misfits this week, but we do have a couple things from Proton. First off, they are introducing a smarter and faster Lumo 1.1. For those who don't remember, Lumo is Proton's cloud-based AI chatbot. It's okay in my testing. And I may test it again because apparently now it's had a lot of performance improvements. But the reason we're sharing for this podcast is that the mobile apps are now open source. So if you were a little bit hesitant about those or waiting on that, or if you know code and you're interested to see what they did and all that, definitely go check that out. Last but not least, from Proton again, they say support Swiss businesses and break free from American tech. TLDR, Proton is offering discounts to Swiss citizens and businesses. So you have 100% off for businesses. So basically it's free. And for everyone else, it is 39% off. Proton is offering up to a year of our services for free to all impacted businesses with fewer than 100 employees, with the possibility of renewal if the high tariffs are still in force. The total amount of free services offered up will be to 20 million Swiss francs, with Proton AG and the nonprofit Proton Foundation directly subsidizing the cost. And this offer ends on September 30th. So you have about a month to little over a month to kind of think this over, check it out, see if it fits your needs.
That's actually it for the week. There were no misfits. So we just want to thank you all for being here. Again, we had that major vulnerability in password managers. We have a happy update to the UK Apple Backdoor saga, great news from Firefox, and more. And of course, I want to also quickly mention our sponsor, which will be discussed with Nate.
Our sponsor this week is Ente Photos. This is, for those who are just joining us, a zero-knowledge cross-platform photo management app with all of the features that you would expect from a typical photo manager and then some. So they have things like albums, they have geotagging, they have AI features like facial recognition and natural language search and curated memories. They have a really good phone widget, hidden folders. A lot of this stuff is opt-in. So the geotagging is opt-in, the AI features are opt-in. It's all done on device. You actually have to opt in per device. That's how we know it's done on device. But they also have several unique features. They have albums that non-users can add to. They are fully open source. They even have a blog post about how you can self-host it if you want to go that route. They have duplicate image detection, 3 backup locations across the EU, a family plan, and also a free plan. If you just want to check it out, or maybe you just don't need a paid plan, they offer 10 gigs for free. We both use Ente. I think we're both pretty happy with it. We really like the service. And if you would like to check them out, you can use our link to let them know that we sent you, which is ente.sh/surveillance support, which is down in the description. Thank you to Ente for sponsoring us and keeping us going.
And thank you all for listening to the podcast. Again, as always, links to all the stories today can be found in the show notes. If you think we missed something or you find a story and you want to report it to us, we have an email on our website that you can contact to let us know about things going on. The final thing we want to ask is for you to share our podcast around. Make sure you're subscribed, and it's a fantastic way to contribute not just to the podcast directly, but also to the topics we're covering. We want this stuff to reach more and more people. We want people to be aware of these topics. The more of you out there who are aware and educated about these things, the safer you're all going to be together. So definitely be a part of that. And we thank you all very much for being here, and we'll see you next week.